Welcome to Knife Thoughts. This video is going to be on this knife, and this is a Tracy LaRock small batch custom as a club knife for the Barlow Bearcat Club. And so first of all, if you're not familiar with the Barlow Bearcat Club, it's a club that I started in 2022 for Barlow enthusiasts and really has become for anyone who enjoys traditional knives especially, and knives in general, but particularly Barlow knives, based on a kind of article series that was done in the mid 20th century that was kind of really amusing. I heard about it on the Catchbit podcast, so definitely check out the Catchbit podcast if you haven't. It's a great podcast with lots of information about traditional pocket knives. But started this club, and we've had a couple different club knives done, including a few rounds of these small batch customs from Tracy LaRock. So this is the third round of these that we've done. The previous two rounds were spear points, and then this round was a one-hand or razor Barlow. So I had actually gotten one from, I believe, the second run, and decided to try to get one of these. And I did get one and got rid of my one from the previous run kind of to fund this one, to be completely honest. And so I don't have another Tracy LaRock to kind of show you, but Tracy LaRock is a pretty well-known custom traditional knife maker. He is kind of known for his Hammonds or Hammonds, I don't know how you say it, but the pattern from the heat treating. And he does a great job of these. This kind of whole setup, these club knives, were initiated by Alex, one of the members and officers actually of the Barlow Bearcat Club, who has several knives from Tracy LaRock. And so it's a really cool thing that we've had done for the club. You can see that it has the club logo here on the bolster, and it's a nice deep etch. It's not stamped, it is etched, but it's very deep, and I think it looks great. I'm really happy with how that turned out. And there were a couple different handle materials on this particular, run or batch of these. I went with Mammoth, and it kind of just got the luck of the draw on what Mammoth I got, and I was super happy with it. Historically, I've not been a massive fan of Mammoth ivory. It's something where a lot of the times I don't like the character that it has, but I was really, really happy with this. You can see it's got a lot of character to it in these lines, and it's really not that dark. A lot of times Mammoth ivory is a little too dark for me. This is, a kind of, I would call it like a latte, color, almost like a mocha type color. And I really liked that on the butt. Hopefully, if I can get this to focus, you can actually see the crosshatch pattern of the ivory when you look at it from this angle. So I think that that's really, really cool, and I'm really happy with the particular one of these that I got. Now, it's not 100% perfect. It is a handmade knife, so it's not going to be 100% perfect. There's basically one imperfection on this, so I'll tell you about that a little bit later. But first of all, it's a very traditional Barlow. It's got the classic elongated bolster. It's got the stamp. I guess I will say that there's maybe two slight imperfections, and one of those is you can see the pivot pin. Hopefully you can see that on camera there. You can see that, and if you could only see it, I wouldn't really even call that a slight imperfection, but you can catch your nail on it very, very slightly. Not much at all, but you can catch it on it a little bit. So that's something that you might be able to polish out or something along those lines, but I'm not going to try to. So that's one thing there. Now, the blade on this is W2. I believe that's what Tracy typically uses, and you can see that it started to take a really cool patina. This is a user for me. I've been using it to cut food and stuff like that, so it's starting to get a nice patina. My Hammond, or however you say this, is not quite as varied as some of the other ones on this batch were, but it still looks really cool. And one thing I wanted to mention is how good a job Tracy has done of making these one-hand blades. So if you're not familiar with these, how these work is when you have the knife here, you catch this on usually your pocket. So this lip here catches on the edge of your pocket, and you can rotate the blade or the handle like so to open it with one hand. And the supposed history of these is that after the Civil War, there were so many people who had arms amputated or just straight up blown off, I guess, or hands at least, that knife companies needed to figure a way to make it so people could open them one-handed, and they came up with this blade design. Now, I don't know if that's true. I don't think I've ever seen any like first-hand historical documents showing that, but it's kind of the story that is told anyway. And it's not always done really well. The only other one of these one-hand opening or razor knives that I have is from Great Eastern Cutlery. It's a number 15, and I have it in a case, and I didn't get it out for this, but it's a much, much, much sharper point here. It's a little bit less long actually, but much sharper, to the point that it can actually like gouge into you a little bit if you carry the knife in your pocket without a slip, which I think makes sense if you do want to open this knife one-handed, to carry it without a slip, that is. So, you know, it's really well done in that. And then some of these razor knives are so blunt or short that you can't really catch it on anything. So it's hard to open because of that. This is really a perfect mix, I think, of being nice and long. You can see you have a good amount of this extension to catch on your pocket, but it's very rounded at the end. So you can see it's got this nice round shape to it. So it's not going to really jab into you much. It hasn't for me. I will say I have carried this in a slip some and not in a slip some, but it, you know, is nice and rounded, so it doesn't have as much of that issue that the GEC version that I have has. Case is actually making razor knives this year, or I guess last year in 2024, but I didn't get one because they don't look like they would work that well, and I'm not a razor, you know, knife collector or a one-hand opening knife collector. I like Barlow's, so it was just kind of a nice touch to have this special blade on this Barlow. And the action is great. I know my previous one did need a little bit of break-in, and I don't think some of them did, but mine didn't really. Really nice walk and talk, easy to pinch open because of that extension also. But it does have a nice long pull. The long pulls that Tracy does are really nice. I think there's a little bit of that food that I mentioned in there, but they are really deep and really kind of like an abrupt shoulder to them, so you can get a really good purchase there. But like I say, nice action on this. Flush back spring too, really nicely done on the back spring in my opinion, and really no gaps either. So, you know, that's great, especially because these, you know, are not inexpensive knives. They are handmade, and for the most part, and made by one person 100%. So, you know, they're not inexpensive knives, and these Mammoth handled ones in particular were more expensive than the other versions. So these Mammoth ones were $600. And so you're definitely in custom knife territory there, in my opinion. It's more than I have spent on it. I actually think it might be my second most expensive knife. I'm pretty sure it is my second most expensive knife. And so, you know, I'm sure there are people that are watching this who have $1,200 knives from, you know, Tony Bowes and stuff like that. And I'm sure there are people who think it's absolutely crazy to buy a knife for $600. And, you know, I've definitely been on that end of the spectrum before, where I was like, no way. And I think, to be completely honest, that if this wasn't a special knife for the club, which I've had such a good time, you know, creating and now being a part of the Barlow Bearcat Club, I probably wouldn't have purchased it, you know, for that price. It's just a really high price for me. Especially considering it does have one flaw, and I mentioned I would tell you about it, and that is that it's a little off center. Now, I will say that there are different kind of levels of off center that kind of bother different people. Either can bother someone and cannot bother another person, you know, and vice versa and everything. I think this is at that level. It's not extreme. The blade is definitely not touching the liners, and even if you push on it, it's not really going to get over there. It stays pretty much where it is. There's not play when it's closed, so it's not like an issue of construction necessarily, but it is slightly off center. I would say I would be happier if it were off center to the other side, to the show side, just because if you do use the nail nick, you are pushing in that direction, that it is already off center. So it's one of those things where, again, I think whether or not it's an issue can go either way. Being that it's a relatively expensive knife helps it go towards an issue for me. But it's not touching the liner. I think I can make it touch the liner, but you know, that's again really pushing on it hard. No blade play when open either, so it's one of those things where, you know, just kind of think of it as a handmade knife. I'm using it, like I say, so you know, again, some people might think that's crazy, but that's what I got it for, so that's what I'm going to do, especially being that it does have this nice deep etch. One of the kind of downsides of some of our other club knives is that the etch is relatively ephemeral, you might say. So I wanted to show you some size comparisons, but I'll also talk about the etches. So here is a GEC 86, and it's in stainless steel, so the etch stays. You don't need to polish it off with any patina. The patina doesn't cover it. Here's another one of our club knives. This is a GEC 15. This is the GEC club knife that we got made here in, well, I say here, it's actually the first day of 2025 when I'm filming this, but we got made in 2024, and the only, so this isn't true. Really, it has a tube that differentiates it as our club knife, and this handle material, this cover material, is only ever been used for our club knives and probably won't be used again. So it is differentiated by that, but our etch is relatively small and it's a carbon steel blade. So if you were to use this knife and get patina, it's going to kind of cover that up. So I do appreciate that this is etched into the bolster and so pretty much permanent. You can see that this LaRock is between the GEC 15 and the GEC 86. So that's kind of the size that you're looking at with that. But I'm really happy with it. I'm really happy to have it. I will also wanted to show you real quick, I almost forgot, in comparison to really my only other custom Barlow, which is, or handmade Barlow, which is this Sean Yaw Barlow. I love this knife very, very much. This was something that Sean sent to me as a gift. I really, really appreciate it. I have carried and used it a lot. And so this is one that I really think highly of. It is not 100% perfect, as Sean, you know, knows. It's not something that, you know, I don't think I'm gonna offend him by saying it's not 100% perfect, but it's a very, very nicely made knife. I would say that between these two, the Sean Yaw is probably the more finely made knife. Now, the only kind of thing there is that there's some slight kind of chippy areas in the bone, but other than that, it's really, really near perfect in my opinion. Whereas again, like I say, the Tracy LaRock has the exposed pin and then the slightly off center blade, which again, it's one of those things where if I don't think about it too much, it doesn't bother me, but I would love for it to be centered. But I don't know how much this Sean Yaw would cost. He doesn't sell knives. I think he maybe has sold one knife now at a knife show, and I don't know how much it, you know, sold for. So the price range might be vastly different. This very likely could be a much, much more expensive knife than this one, in my opinion. So I don't know, and it's certainly not denigrating this knife to compare it to this knife in that way. Like I say, I'm really happy with this knife. Happy to have it, have been enjoying carrying and using it, and will continue to do so. So I want to say thank you to Alex in the club for making these happen, and thank you to Tracy for doing it for the club. I really appreciate it. I think it's a really cool thing for the club members to have access to. Again, of course, not everyone is going to buy a $600 knife, but for those who would like to, I think it's a really cool thing. So this is the Tracy LaRock small batch handmade knife for the Barlow Bearcat Club. This is from the third round of these that have been made, and it's in Mammoth ivory with a razor or one-hand opening blade. So if you've enjoyed this video, make sure you Subscribe to the channel, click the bell, and select all so you know when I post new videos. If you like Barlows, you can apply to the Barlow Bearcat Club in the description. There's a link in the description. Also, make sure you check out Tracy's Instagram and his work on Facebook and such, and the same for Sean Yaw. And go to my website, knifethoughts.com, where I write articles on knives like these and knife-related topics, and subscribe to the email newsletter there. And last but not least, as always, don't forget to go out and do good.